everyone. I wanted to do a quick video and tutorial this morning on river glass. You guys know how much I love sea glass and beach glass and bay glass, all kinds of glass that you can find that has been naturally tumbled by the currents that you find on the beach. And today I'm going to show you what we find here in Maryland, which is river glass. And we find it in the rivers, and it is very old, very thick. You can see how thick this piece of glass is. Very, very old glass that we find that has been naturally tumbled by the rivers and frosted. And so I'm going to show you how we find that and what it looks like. So here we go. So here we have a couple pieces of river glass that we find. Again, this glass is usually typically very, very old glass that we find. So on the bay and sometimes sea glass that you find on the beaches of the ocean will be much, much thinner, as it is much newer glass. It's usually typically between 50 and 80 years old, whereas this glass, we've actually dated pieces back to the early 1900s and the mid to late 1800s. So this piece right here you might recognize as being the neck of a bottle. So here's the lip of the bottle here. And you will notice that even though it is frosted and it has been in the water for a very long time, it's not going to be quite as tumbled as you would expect to see regular sea glass that you would find on the beach of an ocean. And that's because if you look here, you will see that the river is much more calm, and you do see that there is a current. And depending on storms and the level and height of the river, you will get a tumbling, but it isn't nearly as tumbled as you would find in the ocean with the waves. This is also freshwater, so you don't have the same type of smoothing and frosting as you would find in saltwater, but it does get frosted and it does get tumbled, and the edges aren't always as smooth. It just depends on how long the glass has been tossed around in the river. But there's one piece. Here's another piece. This is a beautiful blue piece that we find, and if you look closely on the bottom, you'll see that there is a little M. So this is more than likely from a milk of magnesia bottle. A bottom of a bottle. And then here, I just dropped it. Where did it go? Here is a piece of white. And you will notice that this glass is much, much thicker than the newer glass. So back in the day, the glass was much, much thicker, bottles were much, much thicker, and if you've ever broken a beer bottle or a glass in your kitchen, you'll notice that the glass is very, very thin today, whereas back in the day it was very, very thick. So that's something that's really unique about river glass that we find, and I'm gonna go ahead and show you. We come down to the river's edge. A lot of times we do have to hike a little ways to find a good place on the river, and there's a lot of rock. So if you're a river stone or a beach stone person, this is definitely where you would like to look. But here's a nice piece of brown, and you can see how thick that is. Very, very thick. And underneath this little rock here is a nice piece of green. And we usually do find nice big chunky pieces. And again, you'll see that the edges aren't they're a little bit more jagged than you would expect to find on the beaches of an ocean, because again, this has not been tumbled in waves. It has been tumbled in a river that isn't typically raging. You'll see that there is current, but not a ton of current. But it is beautifully frosted, and it is great for making jewelry. It is great for using for crafts. Here's a really pretty thick piece of aqua. Look how pretty this one is. Look how thick and pretty this piece is. Really like that. And here is another piece of clear, kind of buried into the dirt. You can see that. And a lot of times too, we'll be able to look in the water, and sometimes you'll be able to see glass in the water too. And I was telling you guys how thick the glass is. It is really thick. Look how thick this is. You know, sometimes we'll find different shapes, which make it really fun for jewelry. So there's a really unique, fun piece. And we're gonna come look over here and see what else we can find, if there's anything over here in the water. A lot of times when it's in the water, it's much more difficult to see the glass. Oh, here's a nice piece. Look how nice frosted this is. Nice, big, beautifully frosted piece. This would make a beautiful pendant. Beautifully white frosted piece of glass. And occasionally we do find pottery down here is really common. We have found marbles and stoppers to bottles down here, which is also really very fun. And let's see if we can find anything else in this little area. Oh, here's a nice big, look at this big piece. Look at this big, chunky piece. Look how pretty this is. Look at that big, chunky piece. I love it. It's nice and big and heavy and thick and beautifully aqua colored. Can you guys see that? Look how pretty. I love river glass. I think it's so unique and it's so fun to find. And it's just different. It's kind of in its own class of beach glass. And you can see over here, here's another little piece right here. Again, really nicely frosted, beautifully rounded. This would make another great pendant, nice and thick. Look how thick. Really nice. And right next to it, you can see here's another piece. Now remember, white and clear are always the most common. And then comes brown. Here's brown. You can see it kind of hiding in the rocks. Another really unique shape. It has a couple jagged edges here, but it's still really nicely frosted and a really pretty, nice thick piece of brown frosted glass. And if you look right here, here's a really big, looks like maybe the bottom of a bottle, and it almost has a pink, rinse it off, a pink tinge. A lot of times white glass, due to the components in the glass, it will actually turn pink as it sits in the sun. So depending how long it sits in the sun, if you guys can kind of see, this actually has a pink tint to it, which is really, really pretty. So this is the bottom of a bottle. So here was the top, and then here was the bottom. This was the base of the bottle. And you guys can see it still has some jagged edges, again, just because it hasn't been tumbled as in waves, but it has been roughed around a little bit from the river, and so it is frosted. This will dry beautifully and be a nice, thick, beautiful piece of glass for either jewelry or bracelet or a pendant or just crafting. Or what I love to do, and I'll post a picture at the end of this video, is we just like to put it in a bowl or a jar or a vase for display. It makes such a pretty display. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video of river glass, what it is, how we go about finding it. We do have to hike sometimes really far, a couple miles, to find glass. But we do love to come to the river and check out glass. Here's another piece of green. This was the bottom of a bottle, nicely frosted again. This is a newer piece. You can tell that it's newer because it's not as frosted and it's not as rounded. So that's a bottle bottom, but it is pretty thick, so it is an older piece, not quite as old, but it is still really pretty and perfect to use for crafting or an ornament, or like I said, I'll be posting a picture at the end of this video to show you what we use our glass for to display it in our home. So I just wanted to kind of give you guys a taste of the variety of things that we find and some of the things that we look for and some of the things we come across that we're not always looking for. First of all, I just wanted to show you the color of glass that we find. We always find the clear and the brown and the green, but this is some of the glass that we find that is more rare. I showed you guys before the really pretty cobalt blue, which is usually Vicks Vapor Rub or Milk of Magnesia bottles or old medicine bottles. That's always really pretty to find. We also have really pretty deep aqua or turquoise glass that is also one of my favorites. And we also do find depression glass, which is going to be this almost neon green, and this will actually glow in a black light, under a black light. So this is a really fun color to find. If you ever go in an antique store, you will see a lot of depression glass, glassware, plates, tableware made out of that color glass. Red is probably one of the most rare colors to find, and I can count the pieces of red we've ever found on one hand, but this is a really pretty piece of red, and it has texture and pattern, which is great, so that'll be a really nice jewelry piece. And these are little insulators from a light bulb, and even though they look black, this is what we call black glass, and if you hold this up to a light, they are actually a deep purple. They're actually a really, really pretty deep purple. So these are broken, just pieces of the insulator from a light bulb, but if you look at the bottom of an old light bulb, this is what you will see, and it actually is dark purple glass. These pieces are also called black glass, but they're not actually black. Again, if you hold them up to a light or put a light behind them, they're actually amber, or almost like a dark olive color, dark olive or amber green kind of color. They're really, really pretty, and they're just really fun. They're usually super thick. Think of old wine bottles or liquor jugs usually have these really dark black glass color. I told you guys also about the pink. Pink glass is, there is such thing as pink glass, but usually what we find is white glass that has been colored or tinted pink or almost a violet color from the sun. So white glass is made to be colorless by manganese dioxide, which is something they put in the glass to make it colorless. And when it's put in the sunlight or under an ultraviolet light, that actually causes the glass to have a pink or violet colored hue to it. So the longer it sits out in the sun, it will start to turn a darker shade of pink. So this was actually a white piece at one time, and now it is turning pink. You will also see that it looks a little bit iridescent, and over here with these two brown pieces, you will see that these also, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the camera, but they also actually have like an iridescent sheen to them. Some glass, depending on the chemical compound, can be made to look iridescent, but this glass has actually just probably been weathered, and it depends on the alkalinity of the glass and the water moisture content that it's been sitting in and how long it's been sitting, and that kind of causes it to have that iridescent sheen. But it's super pretty, and it makes really nice jewelry pieces. Really interesting. It makes it really pretty. We also, of course, have pieces that have pattern on them. So this really pretty depression glass, this is probably a plate or a bowl. You can see it has the leaf pattern. There's leaves on there, so that is just really fun and really pretty and unique. And then this piece here, I can't make out what it says, but it's probably the bottom of a bottle, but it has some type of stamp on their icon logo. So anytime we find some embossing, some type of, you know, just some type of writing or pattern or anything, it kind of makes it fun. And we also find pottery, and the pottery pieces can be weathered like this. It gives it a really fun kind of texture and appearance. Here is a nice yellow piece. Usually the pottery is on both sides, so there's yellow and then yellow again. And even sometimes we can get the maker or the brand, if sometimes we can make it out on the bottom. And sometimes when we flip it over, we'll even find, so this would have been the bottom of the plate or the bowl, and then this would have been the top. So we oftentimes get really pretty patterned pieces and colors of pottery too. And finally, sometimes when we go looking for glass, we also dig for bottles, and on occasion we'll find whole bottles, but sometimes we just find the pieces, because a lot of the time as the bottle is coming out of the ground, it actually breaks off. And so as this bottle was probably coming out of the ground this way, the base or the body of the bottle stayed in the ground and the neck broke off. So this is going to be the mouth of the bottle, and this is probably a pretty old piece. It's very, very thick. It's aqua in color. Here's actually a stopper. It's broken, but we love finding stoppers. So this was a bottle stopper, again, aqua in color. Here is the neck of a bottle with a rubber, it feels like a rubber stopper still in it, which is very, very cool. You can see that. And then this fun piece, which is a colorless piece of glass, a clear piece, looks to be some type of a lid, maybe like a lid to a little jar or something. So that looks pretty unique and fun too. So hopefully this gives you guys an idea of some of the really fun things that we find here in Maryland, hiking and searching in the rivers for glass. And I hope you enjoyed.